right, folks. Well, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune, because it's time for another week of the RecPoker podcast. I'm your host, Jim Reid, Bluffsterini in the home game and at RecPoker Jim on socials. And I have the best freaking job in the world, talking poker with my friends here on the strategy edition of the RecPoker podcast every other Monday night. That's right. We're switching things up. It's 9 o'clock Eastern every week. Every other week is going to be a chats interview, and every other week you're going to get to talk strategy with some of our Wrecking Crew members. So I want to just at first shout out Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. They are the official sponsor of the Rec Poker podcast. Find out more about them at runaces.com. And of course, most of what we do here is free. We're largely a volunteer-based organization, so really depend on support from our sponsors and from our premium members who get more than just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to strategy stuff that we're going to get into tonight. Anyway, if you're used to the podcast, you know how you can get your first free month by supporting a local food bank. And you know that I'm going to be joined by some fantastic folks from the Wrecking Crew here. It's Chris Jones, it's Taylor Maas, and I'm proud to announce it's not only invisible producer Rob Gardner, but it's brand spanking new head coach at RecPoker, Rob Gardner. Rob Gardner, welcome into the room and tell folks about all this new exciting stuff that's going on at RecPoker.
It's nice to be visible, Jim. If for no other reason than to make you look a little bit better aesthetically on the screen. So
this crowd, I tell you.
yeah, I'm really excited. One of the things that I truly enjoy doing is taking this incredibly complex game and breaking it down into easier to understand bite-sized chunks and helping people think about the game in simpler systems so that they can make cool decisions, feel confident at the table, and play this game that we love so much. And we're very excited because we've been working behind the scenes. I say we've been going to meetings while Chris works like 100 hours of overtime a week on this new community platform Circle that's going to be coming out in the next, 6 to 12-ish weeks. And it's really going to allow us the opportunity to do more social interaction, more group coaching, more individual one-on-one coaching, and make sure that, all of you out there in the Rec Poker community can get your questions answered, can get support on areas of your game that you might be struggling with, and hopefully just kind of give everybody a more balanced and outside the box approach to playing poker. I'm very excited about this because it's kind of a natural passion of mine. I've been involved in teaching and coaching in just about every industry I've been in, and so to get to do this on this stage with this wonderful group of people is going to be fantastic. And the poker's going pretty good right now, if I'm being honest. So I'm getting a lot of practical hands-on experience here as we try to rep the rec out there on the Run Good tour. So hoping to take a lot of that practical experience in and bring it to the table too, which is what we're doing with this kind of like next, I don't know what we're gonna call it, Forum Strategy Edition 2.0, where we'll be going into some cool hands that we've seen and talking about strategy on a high level. And listen, if you have never had a strategy pod with me and Taylor on it before, so let me just give you a little bit of a preview. We're gonna agree very little, and there's gonna be a lot of banter, and it's going to be fantastic. So even if you learn nothing, you're gonna be entertained. But I think you're gonna get, your thought process challenged and stretched. You're gonna get to think outside the box, and I think if you can start coming to these every second and fourth Monday of the month, I think you'll get a lot out of it.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I'm excited too. This is a period of great change for Rec Poker. We've got all these fantastic people coming on board and helping make us greater and adding all this cool stuff to what we're doing. So I'm just kind of along for the ride as well. And I've got a lot of faith in what our team's putting together, and I cannot wait to get into it. So let's get into it. Rob Gardner, so you were recently playing at the Run Good event in Pennsylvania for the series out there, and just took down a pretty sweet prize. Can I do some crowing for you? I know you're a humble guy.
You can. Yeah, you
Like a little over $20,000, if I've got that number correct. 22 is my favorite number. How did it feel to start off the season with such a great achievement?
Amazing. Full transparency, when me and my wife talked in July, we made the decision that I was going to take my $15,000 bankroll, which is not enough to play live with, and we were just going to take like half of that and just go fire. And the worst case scenario was it went horrible, and then I start selling action and go back the old school route. Long story short, I've had a 270% ROI since July, and we've now been to 8 final tables over 2 months, and the bankroll is healthy. So it has been I've had a blast. I've been living my dream every single day. You know, we've been recording content for Chase the Dream. Little teaser, episode 1 coming out Thursday night right here on the RecPoker YouTube channel. So you're gonna want to check that out. And I just keep saying over and over again, like, this is just, I'm just living the dream. This is just ridiculous. I get up, I play poker, it goes well, I go to sleep. I cannot imagine a better life. So yes, every day I just wake up and I'm like, this is unbelievable that this is my life right now.
Yeah, well, you're making it look good, man, and having great success out there and making all these fantastic contributions to the community here. So I'm glad that you're a big part of the Rec Poker team, and can't wait to see what you can come up with. So tell us
Well,
about what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah. So, all right, here's the goal for tonight. We're going to be talking about adjusting in real time. So, we're going to do an exercise where we're going to go through a hand history. And I have told these 3 lovely gentlemen here absolutely nothing about this hand. And the way we're going to approach it tonight is I'm just going to trickle out information about the hand, and we're going to kind of reevaluate the hand as more information comes out. We're going to have differing opinions, different perspectives, different thoughts on things. And what we're looking to do is show you how, as the hand progresses and we get more information, things can dramatically change. And if you are not willing to change your thought process, if you go into a hand with a preconceived notion and you lock onto it, it can mean absolute disaster. So we're going to kind of explore that in this hand. And then at the end, we'll talk about maybe what we would have done. We'll talk about what actually happened. We'll have some debating about what actually happened. And then we'll wrap it up and give you guys some kind of follow-up tips so you can walk away with this with a couple takeaways. So let's dig into it, gents. Okay, here we go. So this is a hand in the Southern Indiana Run Good main event. It's an $800 buy-in. We're in the 300, 600 big blind level. Okay, big blind ante, 300, 600. Under the gun has 42,000 in chips, so 70 big blinds, and they min open to 1,200. All right, now, no information yet, just the fact that this player is min opened under the gun. I want you guys to talk to me a little bit about how you would construct their range, what you would think about what just a random person in this field would have in this spot.
Sure. I'll go first. I am going to assign them a relatively tight range, but I'm also already going in with my preconceived notion, Southern Indiana, run good, stop. I'm assuming it's not that seasoned of a player. I could expect their range to be a little bit wider than it should be here. So although it's tight, I am still like kind of giving them a little bit more weaker aces than I normally would. Probably give them all pocket pairs, as long as, and as well as the like stronger hands that they have here. So I forget exactly what the percent is under the gun 9-handed, something like 13% of hands. I might be thinking they're somewhere around like 16, 17% of hands. So I think they're going to be slightly looser than they should be here.
Okay. Chris, Jim?
Yeah, I tend to agree unless I've seen other things from this player. What couple of my questions might be: have they opened anything else? Have they opened to a different size since this is a min open? But with complete, if this is the first action I've seen this player take, if I've just shown up at this table, I kind of think fairly similarly, like slightly wider than they should be, but still fairly tight.
Yeah, it's boring. I'm just going to chime in as well. We have so little information. All we really have is sort of the position and the stack depth. And so our kind of default position for that is going to be what's the default range at that spot, and then we kind of factor in player pool tendencies and that sort of thing. So the guys have done a good job with it. I'm just going to jump in.
Would you? How much do you guys adjust based on appearance? For example, 75-year-old man min opens under the gun. 22-year-old kid min opens under the gun. How much are you letting that affect your decision if you don't have any other information?
It's definitely a start. I mean, when we are now, I'm not as much of a live player as I am an online player, so I'm probably not as nuanced with this when it comes to making general rules about that sort of thing. But we all know older players tend to be tighter and more passive versus compared to population. Um, so younger players, if they know what they're doing, if they're handling their chips confidently, if they're carrying the bag that has the little pocket up here and like they're clearly like a regular player, you can tell a lot of that just based on looking at someone, seeing how they handle their chips, whether they're comfortable at the table. Those players I'm going to give wider ranges to in a lot of these situations.
Yeah, I'm pretty massively using appearance to type a player until proven otherwise. So if I know nothing, if I haven't seen them do any poker actions, but I just can sit down at a table, I kind of will assign people into sort of three buckets, really looking at whether I think they're going to be passive, aggressive, or sort of more theory based. And those are really like the three that I'm most concerned with because I most can adjust to.
Yeah, I mean appearance. I mean, poker's a game of information. Use all the information that you have available to make your decisions. It would be stupid to not try and generally assume things based off population tendencies and then use other information to help either hone in on that or deviate where you should be breaking your preconceived notions. However, I will say this spot is probably the one that I adjust the least for. I feel like under the gun is going to have the least amount of movement depending on if it's a 75-year-old man that's got his chair raised up super high and he's kind of like eagling over the table so he can see all the cards, or the young 22-year-old that looks like he's trying to figure out what a robot would do in this spot and make his decisions based off of that. I think this is the one that gets least adjusted. If you're telling me like, hey, cutoff opened or button opened and then we're trying to make a decision, like now I'm adjusting a ton based off of those stereotypes that I'm going to be putting on the players.
And something that Chris said made me think of one other thing, which is that when I'm assigning like tags to players or putting players in buckets, the first thing I always try and do is decide what kind of mistakes I think these players are going to make based on the whatever information is available to me, and that's how I tag players. So I tag players either as players that are going to fold too much, players that are going to call too much, or players that are going to raise too much, or be too aggressive. And then that's where I start from, and then I just kind of get more specific as you get more information about them. But usually, what I'm going to try and do is that first read tells me, okay, how can I put this person in a situation where they're going to make the mistake that I think that they're likely to make.
I think that's fantastic. Both really great points there. Okay, so let me give you a little peel the onion. Now we're gonna get a little bit deeper. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about this villain. So this villain is mid-30s, Asian, and is somebody we've played with before on a couple of occasions. And he is a Hendon mob of $2.1 million and has predominantly traveled circuit, MSPT, run good stops in the Midwest over the last several years. Does this change your take in any way, not rhetorical, on their opening range?
Nope, not at all. No, I'm kidding. It does change it. I don't think like the percent of hands is going to change that much. Like I said, this is probably the spot that gets adjusted the least. But I am going to assume that they're not going to open as many like weak ace combos as a recreational player would. If they've got this type of resume on them, I don't think they're going to be opening ace-8 offsuit, where a recreational player very well might be. So I'm going to adjust based off of that. I do think they could also open more suited connectors than I would expect other players to. I think a lot of players would even fold 8-9 suited, but I'm going to guess this player is going to be opening that 100% from this spot.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I agree. More suited hands, fewer offsuit broadways and offsuit ace-x, because I think they're going to be more studied and more But I also, well, we're not supposed to talk about more in the, so okay, that's what I would say about their range.
Yeah, I like going third. I agree. We can move on.
All right. So now this next part's gonna be fun. Okay, so it folds around to the hero, me, in the hijack. I have 45,000 in chips, so I have this player slightly covered, and I have played with this player about as much as I've played with each of you. So what'll be cool is my next question is going to be, I'm going to ask you your take on what I've done. And since this player's had as much interaction with me as you have at the tables, you're going to be able to give a similar take. So he opens to 1,200 under the gun. I'm in the hijack. I 3-bet to 4,200. What is your read on my range in this spot, given all the information we have to this point?
So I'm reading this as being a polarized 3-betting situation. You're capable of having a lot of board coverage, blocker, semi bluffs in your 3-betting range. You're in a pretty good position. You're giving yourself actually, well, the sizing's kind of interesting. It's about 3.5 times, so it's not as small as it could be. So I'm not sure what to make of that necessarily. But I'm going to give you typically a pretty large 3-betting range.
Okay.
Although I am under the gun here as the villain, so that should tighten you up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that you'd respect an under the gun open and wouldn't be having too wide a range here. You're just trying to get me to tell you what I assume your 3-betting range to be in this spot that we play. I don't think you're going to do this too much with middling pairs, although you could. I would expect it to be a suited Broadway type of hand or a decent pocket pair. I don't think you're going to get too crazy, even 3-betting something like ace queen offsuit, and for sure not like ace jack offsuit. So I'm kind of thinking it's very suited Broadway heavy with some pairs.
Okay. Chris, thoughts?
Yeah, I think I agree with the that you're going to treat this. You think this player's fairly good. I don't think you're going to get out of line against them, and I think you are probably doing this with suited connectors, strong ace x, strong pairs, and then a few probably suit ace x bluff type candidates, maybe some king x bluffs, some like if you really want to get spicy.
I'm surprised nobody said I was going to be a nit and just have like aces and kings here. You guys are being way too soft. All right. So we make the 3-bet to 4,200 and villain makes the call. Now that our opponent is opened and flatted our 3-bet, how has his range changed in your guys' mind? We'll start with Chris. We'll mix the order up here so that we don't let Jim get off the hook every time. We'll go Chris, Jim, and then Taylor here.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting because we think this player is fairly, has good results at least, and has a kind of a, like, when they call here, I'm going to give them a different kind of range than I would like a recreational player or somebody who's I think is maybe less experienced. I think they're going to have they're going to maintain some of their strongest hands sometimes in this calling range. And so I need to be aware of that and think about it. It's not going to be all of their really strong hands, but there's going to be some of those in there. And they're going to have, it's going to be fairly linear in nature.
Okay.
They're going to drop a lot of their kind of raggedy stuff, and it's going to be stuff when we're this deep, it's going to be stuff that they continue with that has playability. So I expect them to have a lot of their suited range intact, those suited connectors we were talking about. They probably getting the right price to set mine a little. So there's probably pairs in there. some of the really strong holdings as well. I think will be intact in this range, unlike some opponents where I think they're not there.
Do you think, Chris, that they're capped or uncapped at this point?
That's what I think, that they are less uncapped than a lot of players would be.
Okay. Jim, your thoughts if you're in this?
Yeah, I think given the stack depth, they'd probably want to be 4-betting some of their better hands at some frequency. Like Chris is saying, they're probably holding some back as well as calls. So I think, and I agree about the linear range. I think if they're playing hands like Ace-5 suited or Ace-4 suited, they're probably doing that as a 4-bet here because you have an image of having a wide 3-betting range. So I think we can eliminate those worse aces from their calling range. So it's going to be more stronger aces, suited Broadway, suited connector, middle pairs. It's a wide range, but those are the kind of hands that I think people want to be calling 3-bets out of position with. Now, I guess the only question is, we have to do that. We can't give ourselves that magic trick of giving them hands that they wouldn't have opened from under the gun. Like, you can't add hands back into the funnel.
Right.
So maybe some of those hands weren't opens from under the gun. And maybe when they are, it's at a low frequency, and because they're the bottom of range, they get folded instead when facing a 3-bet. So maybe we can even shave some of the bottom off of it.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Jim. That is such a great point that's going to fit in here. By the way, as you're listening, I just want to let you guys all know we're at the point in the roller coaster where the shoulder straps have gone down and you're hearing the click, click, click as we're going up the hill. And we're about to come over the top of the hill and everything is about to break loose. So just keep your arms in the vehicle because it's about to get crazy. Taylor, anything you want to add to what Chris and Jim said there?
Yeah, I want to just point out the fact that we're playing live, and this is a mid-30s Asian male that's in the hand. They're flatting 100% of their range here. Like, I don't think they're folding anything, and their 4-bets probably very infrequent here. I could see them taking almost 100% of their range post-flop here. Like, they're under the gun. I just can't think of many hands that they're going to actually fold in this spot. Just trying to play out a player type here. I think kings makes the most sense for a 4-bet. I think ace king makes the second most sense for a 4-bet. And off of that, like, I really could see them flatting aces. I think they're for sure flatting queens and worse here. So I think this person has a really wide range. I don't necessarily think they're capped. I think I agree with Chris's point that they're a little bit more uncapped than you'd expect in this spot. But I think they're going to be calling a ton.
Excellent. Excellent. Great points from the panel here. Okay, let's give you a little bit more information. So our villain made the call, as we mentioned. The flop comes, and this is very important, Jack of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, 3 of spades. So we'll go Jim, Taylor, Chris. How does this board interact with the range that you think villain has at this moment?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, I think it interacts pretty well with that range, to be honest with you. I think they have a lot of 1 pair plus draw hands here. They have a lot of flush draws here. They have a lot. I think we decided that they would come along with hands like 8-9, 9-10, maybe not 10-8, but maybe. So I think they have a lot of the flush draws. I think we can start to eliminate some of the lower straight combos. I don't think they're getting in there with as much of like the 5-6, that kind of stuff. Although, who knows, depending on what we decide about this player. And like we said, they can still have the sets. They can still have some over pairs here, depending on how we've played, depending on how they've played them. So I think this is it intersects with their range pretty well.
Okay, Taylor, thoughts?
Generally agree. So what hands are we worried about in this spot? Obviously, flush draws is one of them. They're going to have flush draws. It's going to be hard to eliminate that in any sort of sense. Ace Jack King Jack. I think they have all the versions of Ace Jack. King Jack, I think they might only have the suited versions along with Queen Jack. So they do have like some top pairs. I think it's top pairs that actually they have more of than we do, because I kind of made the guess earlier that Rob's probably not 3-betting Ace Jack offsuit here. So not having Ace Jack offsuit really cuts down on those combos that he can have. What does it mean in terms of like other straight draws? Queen 10 doesn't even hit it, so it really has to be 10-9, 8-9, 10-8. I don't know how many of those they're going to have within their range. It's all going to have to be suited combos, so it's probably relatively small. That being said, I still think that they can have pocket pairs 10s, 9s, 8s, 7s, jacks, queens, aces. Maybe not kings, because I said that makes the most sense for a 4-bet. But there's a lot of hands that the under the gun player can have here that have decent value. So I think it connects fairly well.
In fact, it's almost like, what hands didn't interact well with this board?
Ace Queen, Ace 10, other smaller suited aces that were like club combos or spade combos, those types of things. So there are some, but it connected pretty well with villain here. Not amazing, but pretty well.
Oh, Chris, you're muted. That's very considerate of you, but to step into the Somsky role.
You're welcome. You're welcome. The thing I would differentiate here a little is, yes, I think because they're I mean, they open under the gun and they've called a 3-bet. So they've started with a strong range and they've ended up here necessarily with a strong range. But I don't know that I would call this hitting it. That, I mean, everything has sort of like somewhat connected, but is a lot of what we've just described. There are better flops I can imagine for our opponent's range. Like there are hands like 10-8 and like 8-9 suited, those kinds of holdings. There's a lot of stuff that's going to wilt under pressure here. So yes, they have very little like just absolute garbage. But they have a lot of stuff that's not great, and they have the monster. I mean, they've got jacks, they've got 7s, they've got some really ace jack. I think they've got some overpairs to this board. So yes, they have some very strong holdings, but they also have a portion of their range which is not going to be very happy if a lot of chips start going in.
Excellent. All right, everybody, put your arms in the air as we go over the hill. Hey, here we go. Okay, so the flop is out. Villain shoves for 37,800 chips. Talk to me about Villain's range now.
So I'll go first. I love this with 8-9 of diamonds, 9-10 of diamonds, 10-8 of diamonds. This is my like, bring it on, baby. I have low showdown value, but I have high equity. And usually what happens is the other player folds, but when they don't, I've got straight draws, I've got flush draws. It feels like this is one of those low showdown value, high equity, overbet spots. So then, I don't know. I'm not constructing a whole range, but that's like slam dunk in that range.
Are you saying, Jim, that you have a 4x pot donk lead shoving range in 3-bet defense spots? Is that what I'm hearing?
If I do, I've just told you 3 of the hands that are in it. I guarantee.
And is it balanced? Do you balance your 4x?
You'd have to do it.
Shoving?
You'd have to put it in with like bottom set maybe, and then I think you're all good. And then like some weird actual, because like you have so much equity with those combo draws, you'd have to do it with some weird like double backdoor something to really be balanced. And no, I'm not that balanced.
Okay, Chris, Taylor, I'm dying to hear your thoughts on this spot.
I'm struggling to come up with a cohesive thought to describe like what's really going through my head here. Because it could be a few things going on. I guess I'm still a bit worried about like queens and aces here. Just like someone hoping that we have a jack. Like I feel like that is a play that I've seen live players make when it's like they have aces and then it came king high and they're just like, okay, cool. Yeah, let me just shove because if I get value, it's going to be when you have a king. Otherwise, I'm not going to, and I might as well just try and get everything here. You could definitely see some straights and flush draws and things like that included in like a donk leading range. But I don't know. It's really tough to like come up with a solid range that our opponent could have here. But to throw all those thoughts aside and like try and become cohesive, I don't think they have a medium to even like medium strong type of hand. And I would classify that as like queen jack, king jack. I just don't think they're going to have that type of hand and just open rip here. So then it comes down to they're saying they have ace jack or better, or they've got a strong draw in this particular spot. Not a whole lot of other things make that much sense to me. I don't think they do this with like pocket eights and just kind of get wild. But you never know what some people are going to do. So I don't know. I'm struggling here.
Yeah, I think ace jack is really the line I'm putting them at in terms of value. They've got ace jack plus, but not, I don't think they have the plus plus. I don't think they have sets of jacks. I don't even really think they have sets of sevens. I think we're talking aces, kings, queens, ace jack, and then some of those draws I think make a lot of sense. And then it's really now I'm looking at the persona and like how gambly do they look, because there is a type of player that does this on the regular, right? And we've all played against them, that this is their move, that they call, they get raised, they call then they see the flop and they know that you're not going to most of the time just smash it. And so they're going to just jam their stack in and count on the fact that you've got to fold so much of the time. And if it's that kind of player, now this becomes a pretty, I think pocket eights are possible. So that's really where I've got to kind of do a little bit of soul searching and soul digging.
All right. Time for some more info. Villain, for the first hour of this main event, has mostly been phone, watching a movie, got the headphones on, just kind of flicking chips in, just, on the grind, chilling. After making this all in, Villain is leaning forward, death staring me like I called his mom every name in the book. How does this change your perspective?
It's weakness. Typically the like trying to like stare at someone and like almost act like they want you out of there is typically weakness. So like if I see that, like I'm really inclined to believe it's draws or kind of pushing off the pot. As Chris was talking through this, like I realized when he was saying like, hey, someone could do this quite frequently. When I played in the Rough Rider poker series, there's one guy that like did this all the time. And then like now I'm getting flashbacks to it. And it's just like, holy cow, like he was doing this with a bunch of like random junk. And it's just like, well, what if this guy is kind of like that similar? So now I'm starting to think maybe I might have missed my ranges before and giving that a little bit more weight, that he could be taking this with something like sevens, or not sevens, sixes, fives, and just hoping that we missed the jack. And now they're staring at us, trying to get us to fold our ace king because they don't want to draw against it, or I don't know, whatever. Like, I don't know. But when they stare at me, like, I'm just figuring out, like, how weak are you?
This does feel like that spot where you have to decide, are they trying to get me, because you're the three better here. Are are they trying to get me to fold ace king, or are they trying to get me to call with pocket aces? You know, like this, what is this sizing trying to do? Is it trying to get a suspicious call from an overpair because he's got a set? Or I don't think we're putting Jack 7 in his range. Or is it that he does have this draw and he wants to get ace king to fold, and we, you know, combinatorically we have a lot more combos of that in our 3-betting range than we do of made hands here. So that also reinforces to me the idea that it's a bluff. Chris LaPlante, thank you so much for the super chat, man. That is awesome. $5 from Chris LaPlante. I agree. It sounds like a bluff at this point. And Chris, you've also helped a local food bank, because we're going to share a portion of those donations with a local food bank. I think in the month of September, it's the Fair Share Food Bank in Cobourg, Ontario. So thank you so much, Chris.
The one thing I'll point out here is I still stand by our earlier ranges, when we started this hand. So when we say this is a bluff, I think we're talking about hands like, there maybe is a hand like ace 10 in there maybe or something, but it's a lot of pocket pairs, right? So if we are holding a hand like and we're thinking we might be able to hero call this player, we think they're bluffing, we still have to be able to beat those pocket pairs.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have ace king here, we got to get rid of it. It's not a hero call type hand. But I do think this widens their range significantly.
Okay. I'm going to give you some more information. We are holding the ace of clubs and the ace of hearts.
Ooh, I was wondering about this. Okay. Interesting.
I will now allow you to tell me what you would do in this spot, because none of you are going to do what I did, and we're about to have a heated argument.
So
Rob's a nit. Oh my gosh, Rob's
nit. You don't even know what's coming. You do not even know what's coming. You think you know what's coming, but you do not know what's coming.
Something tells me, Rob.
Let's hear from the panel here.
If there was a catapult that would allow me to get my chips in faster than my arms could, that would be what I would employ.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm typically shuffling chips with my hand, and when someone goes all in this spot, it's typically me just like quickly grabbing that pile of chips that I have and like throwing it in the middle to call.
And I'm turning over my hand. It's just like, okay, let's run it. Let's go.
But we don't have the ace of diamonds, right? That's the key card
Correct.
here that we do not have. But yeah, like aces just feels super strong here. Like if we're gonna fold aces here, like what are we gonna call with, right?
Right. That's a great question. And sometimes I wonder, like, how much responsibility should we feel to the rest of our range and to our card distribution in spots like that? Like sometimes, depending on who the player is, you can be like, I'm so high in my range, but he's never bluffing, and so I can fold anyway. But I'm not sure. I don't think this player is that demographic. So it's hard to have a better hand than this, given that we 3-bet pre-flop. I guess we could have sevens, we could have jacks. This is pretty much the third best hand. I like the idea of the rush is over now. Now this is our time now. So can we get some information from this player? Can we sort of get a sense of how nervous they are? Can we, we love this trick from Ryan that we talked about on the show quite a bit, just like giving people a bunch of time. And if they're still stressed out and their pulse is racing after several minutes, then they're probably nervous, because you tend to kind of calm down after a few minutes if you're not bluffing. That's not a absolute rule, but it's just one of those little things that you can do. Maybe, I don't know. I'm always tempted to like reveal one of my cards or something fun in the spot like this, but I know they don't
do that. Yeah, you'll get.
You don't want to do that. That's a penalty. Don't do
that.
But this is an opportunity for you to really solicit information from your opponent, or I guess elicit information from your opponent, and try and, because you're in this binary position. Is he bluffing or isn't he? And like, is he value betting a hand worse than this pair?
Here's the thing I would say to this. I still stand by my take, and we can argue about whether that this kind of move is not jacks or sevens. Like I just don't think
Right,
it is.
right,
It might be a set of threes, maybe. That's all that beats us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're fading diamonds if we're even in trouble here, or we've got them crushed. I can't fold this.
This is why live poker is so different than online poker. All right. You guys got one thing right. You guys got one thing right. I did turn my cards face up.
Ooh.
I did turn my cards face up as I folded them.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead, Taylor. I want to get your unbridled thoughts on this.
I already called you a nit, but what? Like, are we just gonna always fold in this spot? Are we gonna only call when we've got like a set here? Granted, like this is gonna work out some of the time. It's gonna be correct some of the time, but like there's gonna be other times where it's very incorrect.
So, couple things here. Let me walk you through this hand from start to finish now in my crazy head. And I'll either get fired as head coach on the first episode of the new form strategy, or maybe we'll learn something through this, okay? So, villain opens under the gun. Now, one of the things that we have to be careful of is Hendon Mob, okay? Because we all assume when we see a Hendon Mob with $2.1 million on it, that player is theory oriented, uses proper ranges, is opening and thinking the way that we think, right? We tend to bucket people into good or bad. And if we feel we're good, then we think that people think like us. And if they're bad, they don't think like us. And that's not how it works. It's not binary. There's very much a spectrum. There are very much bad players who use good ranges. There are good players who use bad ranges. It really is kind of this broadening thing. So it would be natural to assume, okay, well, this player, like, for example, the Jack 7-3 board, they don't have any 2-pair combos, right? And they probably don't have any combo draws in terms of like pair plus flush draws because the Jack and the 7 were the diamonds, so they can't have ace Jack and diamonds, king Jack and diamonds, right? But if you start to widen their range, then their board interaction changes, right? And we honestly don't know if they're using proper ranges. We've only been playing with this player for an hour. We've only played with them priorly 1 or 2 times. So we don't necessarily have that information. So when they open and we 3-bet and they call and then they lead shove into us, we have to ask ourselves the question Jim was asking. Are they over shoving or are they under shoving? And what is their incentive to do so? And as I'm working through this in my head and I'm seeing this guy stare at me, I'm thinking that there's a couple of assumptions that this player's making. The first thing that I think this player is making is an assumption that you guys differed on me on is I don't think this player is assuming that I'm 3-betting a polarized range. For a couple reasons. One, polarized 3-bet ranges are very rare in these low to mid buy-in levels. If you just look at population, you don't run into many people that are 3-betting 8-9 suited, 7-8 suited, 9-10 suited, hands like that, ace-5 suited, ace-4 suited. Two, live players just generally don't give people a lot of credit. They're either the types of players who don't know what good players look like, or they're the types of players that think they're the best players in the world and everybody else sucks, so they don't respect them anyway. So I don't personally think, and in the time I didn't think, that he was thinking that my range was anywhere near as wide as you guys thought it was. And as you start to condense my range, his initiative changes, right? If I start to have a tighter range, then his ability to generate folds decreases. Remember, we're completely uncapped here, right? Like, we can still have jacks. We can still have 7s. We can still have aces through queens. We can still have ace king of diamonds, ace queen of diamonds, ace 10 of diamonds, so on and so forth. So it's not like he shoves and we just fold here, 80% of the time and he wins the hand. He also has some really weird spots. Like we mentioned, like 8-9 of diamonds, 9-10 of diamonds, and so on, right? It really sucks for him to shove 8-9 of diamonds, and then we just call him off with ace king of diamonds, and he's drawing to 2 outs, right? So I don't even think a lot of those weaker flush draws have as much incentive to shove as we think they do, because there's reverse implied odds on them getting there. So I'm working through all of this, okay? And the thing that really keyed me in, that you guys all jumped to the other side of the coin on, which is really fascinating to me, was the stare down, right? What was the purpose of the stare down? Why is this player staring at me? Now, remember, we've played together before. Not a ton, but we've played together before. He probably has some idea of who I am. So why is he staring me down? Is this the type of player that really thinks that giving me a dirty look is going to make me pee my pants and like fold my cards? Is that really the initiative he's trying to get? Or is this a man up and, you know, trying to get me to be more cocky, trying to get me to overplay my hand? And at the end of the day, as I looked at it, I'm like, I think this is only value. Because if he was going to bluff, let's just say we wanted to turn 8-9 of diamonds into a bluff, right? Why donk lead shove? I 3-bet. I'm going to put some chips in the pot, check raise jam, and win some more chips. Why donk lead shove and cost yourself some money in a situation where if I bet, I can check raise and make more money? Or if I don't bet, well, now he gets a free roll to hit his hand. Like, donk leave shoving doesn't really make a lot of sense as a bluff, especially for 4x pot, because he could probably just donk pot, right, and get the same fold equity, right? So why choose 4x pot? Why put an $800 buy-in on the line to win an 8,000 chip pot, right? So I'm going all through this, and I'm like 99% sure this is value. But we're not done, because I need to know, right? I need to know what he actually has. And this is a really, really important lesson I cannot stress enough for all of you out there. Live poker is a game of information. And a lot of people will tell you, never show your hand, don't give up any information, There's an information exchange that happens. And if we're in a situation where we can give out information that is misconceived, misinterpreted, misused, or misrepresented, and then the information we get back has exponentially more value to us than it has to other people, then it's the perfect place to actually give out information. It's actually an EV decision to give out information. So when I came to the decision to fold, I was folding face up, and the next 5 seconds was going to be the most valuable 5 seconds of this entire tournament, because in the first 3 seconds, I'm going to know exactly what he had. And the reaction of the other 8 people at the table is going to give me a massive amount of information about how they think about the game. Not mentioning the fact that this is going to be talked about at the table for the next 27 minutes, as everybody at the table tells me exactly how they think about poker, because they can't process that somebody would fold aces here. So I fold the aces face up, and it was literally like out of the scene of Rounders when Mike folds the 2 pair versus the flopped straight. Just pure anger. Seething anger from this guy. And how the fuck do you fold it? I mean, just, like rant, and he is like fuming mad. And there's a little banter going back and forth at this point. And he literally opens every hand for the next 2 orbits. That's how pissed off he was about this spot. And so I went to talk to him after the tournament. I told you this, Jim, in text, because I wanted to make sure there wasn't like a, confrontational thing, or he thought I was like showing him up or getting angry with him. And so we talked on break. He had Jack 7 suited. Now, here's why this is so important, because it's so easy, especially in solver land, all these wonderful training sites we have access to, and there's a lot of great training sites out there, right? But we get so locked in and fixated on these ranges that we learn as baselines we understand, and the way that people are supposed to think, that we just assume, like, well, we get to a flop of Jack 7-3, he's got new 2 pair combos, he's probably not shoving top set. We just start to eliminate all of these value hands. But what if, to Taylor's point at the very beginning, which I thought was very adept, he's raising 25-30% of hands from under the gun, and he's never folding to a 3-bet.
Mhm.
How does that change things, right? How does that change how he interacts with the board? How does that change the types of hands that he can come to the flop with? And in a situation where we start to see that people can still deviate and have $2.1 million Hendon mobs, that people can still deviate and do obscure things at the table, we can start to realize that maybe the solver way of looking at things not only is detrimental, it's dangerous to our game. Now, I don't know, because I can't go back and have a first impression a second time. I don't know if I get to this conclusion if he doesn't stare me down. And again, it's fascinating to me that the stare down for me led me in one direction and it led the three of you in another direction. The stare down was really key to me because it felt like intentional manipulation. And I just don't think that somebody who is using proper sizings at the table and, c-betting and doing kind of some of the basic things is going to look at another player that's doing proper sizings and think that they can pull that off. I think they could maybe pull that off versus like a fish, but I don't think that they're going to pull that off against another player that's doing those things. So for me, it led me to the place of like, I think the whole thought process here is he's opening a wide range. He's trying to flop 2-pair plus, and this is probably the way he's made most of his money. Flop 2-pair plus, throw a ton of chips in, and expect the players at the table not to be able to fold. And then if you roll back to the 3-bet range, right? Again, to Taylor's point, I'm not 3-betting ace jack. So what does my range look like here on this flop? Well, I either have aces, kings, queens, a sliver of jacks, right? Or air. Flush draws. But like, we don't have, like, our range is very, very strong and very, very weak. So when he shoves that big, he's basically expecting that we're just never going to fold the top of range. Again, to Taylor's, what Taylor said, he's like, if we're or Chris, it might've been Chris. If we're folding aces, we're folding everything. Right? So in his mind, hey, if I hit a big can, I'm just going to shove. He's going to call with all this stuff up here because he has to. He has to call with kings, has to call with queens, has to call with aces, has to call with all of his ace diamond draws. He can't fold any of those hands, and I'm ahead of all of that.
All right. Can I get you off your soapbox?
Yeah. Come at me, bro. Let's go.
You've had enough time filibustering here, Rob. I hear what you're saying. I still don't agree. I'd like to point out a few things, though. Like, you've made this point that's like, hey, if you had these, like, if you had 8-9 suited, if you had this flush draw, why wouldn't you check and then raise and, like, then get the money in the middle? So, like, why would you take this route? You can say that with the value. Like, if you're attributing that type of logic to only one part of your range, I think that's flawed logic on your behalf. To say, like, hey, like, they're only going to be doing this with jacks and sevens and threes and jack 7. And it makes sense when they do it this way, but it doesn't make sense if they would do it this way with these other hands because they could get more value. I think you can make the point they're going to get more value by check raising with those hands than they are just 4x shoving. So I take issue with that part of the logic that, like, I don't think you can necessarily say that cuts their range in half, that they would only do it with this, and then it eliminates any sort of bluffs from them potentially. There's another point I was going to make, and I was missing out on that. The last point I was going to make that I'm going to pull forward now is, how could you do this when you knew the river was coming a 3 and you were going to have a better 2-pair than him?
Right.
I didn't know that he had jack 7 specifically. I didn't think I didn't put him that specifically. I felt like he was 2-pair plus.
Let me ask about that, because I hear what you're saying. You're saying, I think he had value, but can he not have queens? Can he not have kings? Can he not have ace jack? I think the problem with aces is that we beat some of that value. Mm-hmm. That's, to me, the problem with folding aces here is that, I mean, if you told me you folded queens here, I'd be like, but okay, maybe. But I just feel like if somebody's doing, if they're, I mean, they're sitting there waiting to make a 4x pot shove. They're not going to do it with any of they're just doing it with 2-pair plus. I don't know. Like, that's somebody who, I don't think they make $2.1 million. I know you said we got to not look at Hendon mobs, but like, how do you consistently call 3-bets with garbage hands and only wait until you make 2-pair plus and then shove your entire stack in before your opponent can put any of their chips in after they've signaled having a strong hand? How are you a win? I can't conceive of somebody making that much money at poker playing
because
that
people
way.
can't fold.
Chris, I just want to point out the Jack 7 suit is actually in my office right now, just off screen, and is very hurt that you refer to them as a garbage hand. They heard that. They heard you say that, you dick. Jack 7 suited is a beautiful hand. Asshole.
I mean, it's got some nice properties. I'm not saying it doesn't.
He didn't mean it, honey. He didn't mean it. He's just being crazy.
Oh my God.
I did remember the second thing I was going to say. In terms of the showing information or showing your hand, getting information, I can see that. I would just really caution people against trying to do that in a way that you're not familiar with or you're unsure how it's actually going to play out. To go, oh, cool, like I'm going to make this big fold and then I'm going to show everyone, to get them talking strategy and to tilt this guy. Like, you don't always know that's going to happen. I think Rob's talking through this and saying this is a really great side effect from the decision. I think you still make the decision in a vacuum of what happens. This just happened to be a really great side effect that happened, that it got everyone talking, everyone telling Rob how they would handle these specific hands, and also tilting a guy to no extent. I think that's all a side effect. So it's still like evaluated in a vacuum.
There is
now,
one
Taylor,
more side effect.
Let me jump in for 1 second, Rock. Now, Taylor, it might be a different experience when you're in Rob's spot, because the people that Rob's playing with actually enjoy his company and like playing with him, and they might handle him differently. They might respond to this differently. They might like engage in conversation and reveal truths about their lives in a way that they never would with you, with your Grinch heart.
I don't take my EV on the table and throw it away to get a very interesting poker hand to bring to a podcast and talk about, and then happen to be right and sound like I'm this great poker player and I'm the head coach of everyone here. So sorry, we're a bit different.
Sorry, Rob, you're saying.
No, there is another side effect, which is that when you fold a hand like aces face up in a spot like that, you get to bluff catch for the next 2 hours so profitably, because everybody at the table just thinks they're going to be able to run you over. So to Taylor's point, you do need to be careful. If you're going to show cards, you need to understand the change in the dynamic that's going to happen at the table and be ready to adjust to it accordingly. Don't just do it to be cocky or funny or whatever. Like, understand if you show a nitty presence that people are going to treat you like a nit, and if you show a hyper aggressive presence, they're going to treat you like you're hyper aggressive, and you need to adjust to the fact that they're going to over adjust. It's interesting because as I've played more out here, I've run into other people like this, and there is this player type very specifically in live. I don't think we see this online, who does their strategy is they want to play 30, 40, 50% of hands. They want to hit flops, and they want to go to value town with those flops. Because there's players in these fields who will never fold top pair, no matter how many chips you put in the pot. Now, going 4x pot is a little bit extreme. Chris, to your point, I don't know that there's many people donk shoving queens on that kind of board for their tournament life in an $800 tournament. Because I don't think that could be a profitable shove. I think that would be literally lighting money on fire. Because when they get called, they're just absolutely destroyed. And yeah, they win, but they're winning a really small pot while they're risking an entire tournament buy-in in change for it. So what I want to say, I guess my first takeaway, and I'll be curious what your guys' takeaways are. I think it's really, really important to respect overbets in the live arena until you have some sort of legit evidence that it's BS. I would really caution people to start your baseline. Overbet is value. Now, if you see them show down a hand, they get picked off, whatever, you see a spot and like they have a bluff, in particular, a bluff that makes no sense, not like they're blocking the flush draw bluff. Like they just take like 4-6 offsuit and they turn it into like some random triple off for no reason, and they overbet pot in the river, and you see that hand play down. Now you can kind of start to go, okay, this player's capable of just being silly and goofy and out of line. But there are a ton of people who have bad mechanics, aren't necessarily the most studied, and you'll run into these people in the live arena and they'll have 8 rings. And you're sitting there going, how does this guy have 8 rings? Like, he's opening ace 3 offsuit under the gun. And what's going on here? It's just because these guys, when they hit big hands, they understand, okay, I got a big hand. I can go pot. I can go 150% pot. I can go 200% pot. And, Joe Schmo trucker guy who's from the 2 blocks down the street comes in and is like, I got king 10 on this king 9-3 board. Let's go. And they're flicking chips in. And they make enough money off of those spots to build some stacks and trickle into the final table enough times to make money. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're good. Those are my takeaways from this spot. And the fact that I'm the only person listening to this podcast that would fold aces in that spot.
Let me just one more thing about the value of aces here. Like I just ran this here.
Yes.
I'm looking at it. If we give them, okay, we'll take away queens, right? They've got pocket 3s. They've got some of these suited, like I think some of the suited combos that we might be talking about. Maybe you're saying they don't have those, but I gave them a few diamond combos: ace 10 suited, ace queen suited, ace king suited, aces, kings, jack 7 suited, and pocket 3s. Just that. No queens, no other, like ace jack isn't even in there. We are ahead 54 to 45%, 54.5. So like aces is so, I mean, even against this hand, it's not that much of it. I mean, it's you're in trouble, but it's not like you've got some possibilities here with aces. Even if you call this and they have that strong of a hand. So I don't know. The only thing you're just like dead against is a set. And
can you do me a quick favor, Chris, and just change it to kings for a second? Because I bet that changes drastically.
I gave him kings.
No, you have kings. Because to a lot of people that people may think like us having kings and us having aces here are very similar, but yet they're very different. Because if they do have the nut flush draws, us having kings versus an ace high flush draw is way less value than us having aces versus the nut flush draw. So I wouldn't be surprised if our equity shrinks there quite considerably. And that to me is part of the reason why I'm calling here, because it's like we have the best blocking hands for this spot.
Yeah, keep talking and I'll pull
I'll keep talking.
Sure. I want to shout out, we've got some really fantastic people in the YouTube chat tonight. So while Chris is putting this together, I see some new names in here. So welcome to the show, gang. And I want to give a real shout out to Chris LaPlante. Again, Chris, thanks for that donation. We're going to help out a local food bank.
So I
appreciate that.
To go back to takeaways, a thing that Rob said, like really respect overbets from unknown players. I 100% agree with that. I think a lot of people are very comfortable being able to find an overbet when they've got a strong value hand. I think a lot of people are very uncomfortable, if they're not a well-seasoned player, being able to find overbet bluffs. And therefore, the general population, if it's an overbet, just indexes way more towards value than they do bluffs in a lot of those spots. So I think that part is very true.
It's a massive difference.
Thank you. Yes.
Massive difference having kings versus aces here. So with aces against that range, we're favored 54 to 45. Well, there's half percentage points in there. With kings with no diamond, we are a 61 to 39 dog.
Wow, huge.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't conceptually understand that when they first think through this. And that's why I wanted to point this out. And I started to hit on it. But it's like kings, the very next best hand is aces. And therefore, those must be like very close in terms of how you must value them. I think having aces here is just significantly more valuable to us. And that's essentially the reason why.
This begs one last question before we put a bow on all this. Okay. How tough does this field have to be for us to want to take a 140 big blind flip when we're 70 plus big blinds deep?
I think that's like a different question. I understand where you're getting at with this, because it's like, hey, if it is this spot and it is truly a 50-50, do you take it? Because like Chip EV says, yeah, sure. Why not? Just take it. And I think that that's the point you're getting at. I caution it just a little bit here because Chris is like, hey, if we give them this very tight range, they can never have anything worse than this. It's a flip. And that's the reason why we should call. A lot of the things in my head are pointing towards they can have more than this in this spot. And then it pushes it more than a flip in this exact situation. So I just want to caution on that a little bit. But to your point, if we were in a different spot, or we could correctly theorize this and say, yes, it is exactly a 50-50 flip, or even 54-46 like it is in this spot, I think we should be folding a decent amount just to avoid the variance, especially if we know what we're doing and it's this type of field. I've been trying to push myself away from things like this. Chris and I had a separate conversation, I believe yesterday, maybe the day before, and we were kind of in this spot and we were talking through things. It was also about a donk. It was also about trying to range them. And I was like, hey, maybe we should just fold in this spot because best case scenario, we're flipping. And I want to just like think about that and also bring it here and just be like, yeah, no, if it is spots like this, we should lean more towards flipping and away from the gambling, especially if we've been studying. We know what's going on. We can think we have an edge on the player base. Like we don't necessarily need to take those type of spots for huge chip stacks on a pure coin flip.
Mm-hmm.
A couple more comments from the YouTube chat before we roll on out of here. Scott Lum says, this guy's a good player. There's no two pairs on that flop. He's telling you what you wanted to hear. I do it all the time.
I'll take the under.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, a big shout out to all our YouTube chatters tonight. Brian and all the Scots. Dan Kennedy in here off his own nice little finish the other day. Lorianne and Hubie, and I see all sorts of other fun folks in there. So thanks for coming. And Phil, of course, MSPT trophy winner. Phil Razor. Oh man,
look at the
Wow.
olive branch just shared.
I don't. I hate you still.
That is tough. That is tough. This is why you got to join the YouTube chat, folks. It's a lot more fun. Get in here live. All right, head coach Rob Gardner. Fantastic first episode of our new strategy podcast, and well played, sir. Very well played indeed. Is there anything else that we should jump into tonight before we roll on out?
No, I'm just gonna leave a teaser. October 13th, because this is the second and fourth Monday, and our next Monday is actually 2 weeks out because we've got 5 Mondays this week. So next week we're gonna have a fun panel discussion. You're definitely gonna not want to miss that. And then we've got who's the guest in the first
Chris Land. He goes by Lefty.
Okay.
A great.
Oh yeah. A
October
lot of you guys
6th.
have seen him on social media, so you want to check that out. But on the 13th, we're going to talk about a bluff catching spot versus Nick Rigby, who made the main event final table in, I think it was 2021, 2022. You think that these guys disagree with me now? Wait till October 13th. We're gonna have quite the discussion.
All right. Well, big thanks to everyone in the YouTube chat. Of course, to Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, Taylor Maas, Chris Jones, quite visible producer and head coach Rob Gardner. This has been such a pleasure on the strategy edition of the RecPoker podcast. Looking forward to getting back in here next week and talking to Chris Land. What else, gang? Is that all there is? Is that all she wrote? let's
Do
fade
we
on
cue the
out.
music like we do in the we just roll the music and go?
I think we just roll the music, baby. Let's learn by doing. Here on the